designed a new language to help people reason more logically.
His ideas have had a lasting impact on philosophy, mathematics, and computer science.
But what if they took us on a long intellectual detour?
Our old friend John Perry thinks they did.
Frege and Reason, next time on Philosophy Talk.
Listen to Philosophy Talk today at noon on KSJE 90.9 FM, Farmington. KSJE is supported by the Farmington Civic Center, bringing a full slate of entertainment to Farmington and San Juan County. Farmington's Chevelle Shepherd, Saturday, November 20th at 7:30 p.m. The Farmington Civic Center, 200 West Arrington in downtown Farmington. Find out more online at fmtn.org/shows or at 505-599-1148. 11 minutes past 8 o'clock. It is Tuesday morning, November the 9th, 2021. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Michlin. Thanks for tuning in to KSJE 90.9 FM, over the air, of course, here in San Juan County, New Mexico. 103.3 FM over the air in Durango, Colorado, and streaming everywhere else on Earth from our website, ksje.com. And welcome to our viewers who are watching this visual radio program. It is streaming live this morning on the KSJE Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and to our Twitter account. We are glad that you are with us this morning because today we are getting an update from Aztec Schools with the Superintendent. Kevin Summers is here in the studio. My conversation with him begins in the next few moments right here on KSJE. Then later on this hour, we'll check out some of the pets available for adoption at the Farmington Regional Animal Shelter, including Indy, the dog that you see on the screen right now. You'll learn more about him coming up later on this hour at 8:50 a.m. right here on KSJE. Next hour, Mick Hess is going to take us roving with the arts. Mick is featuring another Hope Not Hate segment this morning. That is when he features composers who were imprisoned during World War II in some of the German concentration camps. We'll learn more about the story of the man you see on the screen, Victor Ullman, coming up today on our Hope Not Hate series, and hear some of his music on KSJE. Don't forget, in addition to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, you can also check us out on our Instagram page, and if you're a podcast person, you can subscribe for free to KSJE Podcasts wherever you listen to podcasts, so you can check us out there as well. Outside our studios here at San Juan College, it is a mostly cloudy morning today. We're expecting a partly cloudy day today with some more increasing clouds this evening. 64 for a high in Farmington today. Maybe a chance of a rain shower overnight and maybe some mountain snows with a low of 38 tonight. Sunny but windy tomorrow with a high of 59 on Wednesday, 33 and windy overnight. Then sunshine with a high of 59 on Thursday. Lower 60s for Friday and Saturday, maybe mid-60s by Sunday with some partly sunny skies. Well, let me turn to my guest who is here with me this morning. As I mentioned, the Superintendent of Schools with the Aztec School District. Kevin Summers is back in the studio with me. Mr. Summers, good morning. Good to have you back.
Oh, good morning, Scott. It's good to see you.
Thank you for being here. And things going well for Aztec Schools? That's my first question I ask you all the time, don't I?
And the answer is, what have you heard? No, I think they've been going very well. You know, we've had our hiccups with some of the COVID-19 protocols and having to kind of put our schools in flux a little bit to keep kids and staff safe. But by and large, things are going well, and I'm very excited to be here and talk about those things.
All right, very good. Well, let's talk about that because some of the protocols are, I don't want to say changing maybe, but evolving is a better term to use. I know you get guidance from the Public Education Department, and so what are some of the things that you're being told now to kind of be on the lookout for or plan for?
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the great things to talk about right now because the State Department of Health, the Department of Education, they've released some new guidance, Test to Stay program, wherein students who are unvaccinated can test upon their exposure on days 1, 3, and 5, and if they have those negative rapid tests, they can remain in school. And I think that's an important part to talk about because most of the schools around the state aren't quite ready to launch that, despite the fact that, you know, it's beginning now. So it's something that we're working on. We're hoping to have something up and running, hopefully by December 1st, but if not December 1st, shortly thereafter, where those rapid tests tests. They do have to be done at school, but we'll have people certified and able to collect those tests. And of course, parents will have to opt into that. We're not just going to test kids without parent consent or permission. But I think it's a great opportunity to have kids remain in school instead of having to quarantine at home and do remote learning.
Right, very true. And of course, now vaccines are available for younger kids, 5 to 11, and so that also maybe helps with some of these things as well for parents who opt in to have their child vaccinated. It's still a choice of parents that they can make, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, if parents choose to have their child vaccinated, then if a child is a close contact to a positive person, they can still remain in school as long as they're asymptomatic. And it's a difficult decision. I understand. My daughter, who's 9, came to me this weekend and said, "Dad, can I get vaccinated?" And I'm not quite sure where I stand on having my daughter vaccinated yet. I've made that decision. Then, as long as there's proof of vaccination, then those students positive contact.
Got it. Very good. Another thing we want to talk about this morning is some strategic planning going on for Aztec schools, and so take me through some of that.
Sure. So I think what's important first to talk about is over the last 135 years, education, K-12 education in particular, really hasn't changed a whole lot. So we're trying to be different by design, intentionally different, fundamentally different. And so we're in the beginning steps of our strategic plan where we've got some internal stakeholders kind of assessing what our organizational values are. And from that, we're going to move into a larger strategic planning process that will include stakeholders from the college, that will include stakeholders from around the community, both internal and external to the organization. And essentially, they're going to give us a 3 to 5 year plan on how do we be different, but in a good way.
Right.
How do we be different moving forward and offer things that our community deserves and that our community desires, and more importantly, that our children just absolutely are craving. So we're working on this different by design mission, and hopefully that'll all fold in really nice to the strategic plan and allow us to do things very differently, because all the rules are off right now. It's kind of the Wild West in education, and I think now's the golden opportunity for us to do that.
Got you. Let me pick up on something that you said, that education hadn't changed all that much, but it seems to me like it really has, but I may not be seeing what you're seeing. And so explain that statement a little bit more to us to understand where you're coming from.
So you're absolutely right in the sense that, as technology has blossomed, we're starting to see new delivery methods, but at the end of the day, it's largely sit and get. We're seeing kind of the same stuff that we've seen over the last 130 years, where it's the teacher delivering and it's the students receiving. And rather than that, we'd like to change things up a little bit. We'd like to empower our students to be great learners. And I think the reality is this. For the longest time, teachers were kind of perceived as the purveyors of knowledge, right? Students had to come to teachers poured into those students, and that's how education worked. But in the 20th century, 21st century, all of human knowledge is available at our fingertips. And so I think right now what we have to start shifting towards is an instructional model where students are asking great questions. And it's really student-led in terms of what are their interests, what are their career desires. We know that we're preparing kids now for careers that don't even exist yet. And so making sure that we're able to impart those great skills, reading, math, that stuff's not going away, but how do we get students to take those skills and apply them in new and different ways than ever before? And I think it causes us as adults to do things differently, to be different by design.
Got it. Now I get it. Now I got it. Thank you very much. Because you're right. There are a lot of careers and jobs that we couldn't even think of yet that kids in your schools today are going to be using and getting jobs in and evolving in their careers. And so what skills do you teach them now, with stuff that we do know, to prepare them for stuff that we don't know, I guess is how I see it.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. And ultimately there's a number of soft skills or competencies that we know are valuable in every walk of life. Being able to ask good questions, being able to work as a team, being able to show up on time, right? Being able to write an email or have different communication styles, because the way that I'm going to communicate with a judge judge is going to be very different than the way I'm going to communicate with my friends. And so really kind of honing in on those soft skills while also looking at some of those traditional, math, reading, arithmetic type things.
Right.
Math, reading, arithmetic, whatever.
Yeah, I got it.
Lots of math.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. But true. And so now I get it. And so that's part of what this strategic planning sessions will be looking at.
Yes, sir.
It sounds like. And
Absolutely.
you mentioned doing both internal and external and talking with some of your partners and people like the college and other community members in Aztec and businesses and things like that.
Absolutely. We've heard the old adage, it takes a village to raise a child, and that's absolutely true. And so we can't have a deaf ear to our external stakeholders. We've talked about, as a state, we're really going through a different pandemic in the sense that we're exporting our children at an alarming rate. So we're really trying to have these conversations with other stakeholders to say, what is it that you need? How can you employ the students who are a product of our system? And how can we help you reach those employability skills while also teaching those soft skills that we know that are valuable throughout anyone's life?
Very true. And of course, that export kind of predates the current pandemic, unfortunately.
Yeah, correct. Unfortunately.
And it's been happening for a long time, and so that's an important thing. You mentioned some of the toolkit updates from the PED, the Public Education Department, and so I wanted to ask you a little bit about that, some of those changes. And so this is in dealing with COVID, the other pandemic in the room that we really are talking about as well. But tell me a little bit about those updates as of, I guess, 2nd of November, right, earlier this month.
November 1st was the new toolkits release. I don't think it actually went public until November 3rd. And like I said, the biggest change there, or evolution, as you said, was being able to have this test to stay program. And I think it's just really important for everyone to know that these things take time. Never in the history of education have educators been tasked with medical procedure, collecting of specimens, and so that's something that we're not taking lightly. It's something that we want to make sure that we're certified to do. It's something we want to make sure that we have the processes in place for parents to be able to opt into that, and for the parents who aren't necessarily desiring such a procedure, then we want to make sure that we honor that as well and have procedures in place for them. So that's really the big change there. I would be remiss, I guess, if I didn't kind of reiterate. I know in years past, I'm guilty of it as a parent as well. I know in years past, we say, you're faking, kid, and we tend to send our students to school sick. But I think the ramifications of that now are detrimental to everyone else. It doesn't just affect that one student anymore, but it potentially can affect hundreds of students.
Right. Well, and I would assume that your teachers and your principals try to err on the side of caution. And so if a kid's coming to school with the sniffles, it may be more than the sniffles, or they may react like it's more than just the sniffles and take the necessary action or what have you to deal with that.
Right, yeah. So
and the parents are like, but he only has a sniffle.
It's only a sniffle. It's cold, it's allergies.
Right.
And we understand that. And that's actually one of the nice evolutions that we've seen over the course of, I don't know what toolkit this is. This is toolkit 19.0, I think.
The latest one that's been evolving, yes.
Yeah, but we've seen it evolve. It used to be if it was any symptom, which you know how children are. They're little petri dishes. And so any symptom
and we love them
of
for
COVID,
that.
Yeah, of course we do. But it's not uncommon for a child to have any one symptom at any given time. So at least now we're starting to see an evolution where it's two symptoms. If we have two of these symptoms, then we need to approach it in a much more cautious way than we ever have before. So really trying to implore people, please take note of your children. If they're exhibiting multiple symptoms, keep them home. Keep them home until those symptoms subside. Go get a test if that's something that you're willing to do as well. But that way we're not impacting multiple students. And if I could, I'll give you a quick example.
Sure.
We have one campus where 49% of our students were categorized as a close contact to somebody who was positive. The positive happened to be the teacher, and the teachers have the same mind shift paradigm or paradigm shift problem right now, in the sense that for years teachers went, I'm sick, but that's okay. I'm going to power through because it's just a head cold or whatever. But as we're seeing those symptoms that mirror some other illnesses, and then those teachers end up testing positive, then ultimately it impacts 49% of one campus. And that was actually the reason that we had to close down Park Avenue recently, is because almost half of our students were having to quarantine anyway, which also created some stresses on our teaching staff.
Of course, right. And those other 49% of your students maybe didn't have any symptoms, but they still had to quarantine.
Correct, absolutely.
Following these guidelines.
Because they weren't vaccinated, or
Right.
because we didn't have the test to stay process in place, which is, again, something we're working on. It's not ready to go yet, but we're hoping to have it
Got you.
relatively quick.
So that may be different in the future then, that
Correct.
reaction to
Hopefully.
something like that. Right, understood. And as the graphic shows, and for folks who are watching us on video, but for our radio audience, some of the prevention things would be the things we've been hearing about, right, is to get vaccinated, maintain the physical distancing, wear a face mask, wash your hands often with soap and water, and clean regularly, which I know for your custodial staff, that's an ongoing battle as well throughout your schools.
Absolutely, yeah. Our custodians are engaging systems that they've never had to engage before. They're probably working double time, but I also think it's important to acknowledge our students are working double time and our staff are working double time, and our students have been very good about wearing their masks in the majority of cases, and most of the time we can rationalize and say, hey, this isn't necessarily just about you, this is about everyone else right now.
Right.
And so regardless of what your paradigm is, undergoing these procedures that we're bound to from the state public education department, I think is important, and everyone's done a very good job. So my gratitude to everyone involved.
Very true. Well, very true. And kudos to everyone. I know from your teachers to your custodians to administrators, everyone's had to kind of change how they do things. All of us, not just
Absolutely.
schools, but everybody. I get it. Restaurants, stores, you name it.
sir.
It doesn't matter. Just the final other thoughts about this new toolkit, basically, right? Talking a little bit about incubation of the coronavirus. And again, based on what we know, individuals generally become ill between 2 and 14 days after exposure. And again, the insidiousness of this is that they may not show symptoms, and so that's what causes some of the other spread that we've seen in our community. So that's
Yes, sir.
the information that we're getting from the Department of Health that the PED is sending out to schools.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's one of the things that that has actually been kind of detrimental to us in that aspect. When we've got a number of staff who aren't vaccinated, they're required by the public health order to test weekly for COVID, and they're asymptomatic, and then they go and take their test, and sure enough, they're positive. And then we have to do all of the contact tracing backwards, retroactively, to say who were they around, how long were they around, were they wearing masks, were they not wearing masks, and so that's where we kind of get into this systemic, almost exponential contact tracing.
Right. Yeah, because it really does. People do still come in contact with each other, and so you've got to contact all those other folks, perhaps,
Yes, sir.
right? And
Yeah.
And let them know. And
Absolutely, and then if they're within 3 feet for 15 feet or more, whether they're wearing if they're within 3 feet for 15 minutes or more, whether they're wearing masks or not, we have to send them home for 10 days, and that's not something that's been conducive for families. We know that families are working. It's not something that's conducive for our teachers. Having to teach a group of kids in person and a group of kids online, it's very, very difficult, very taxing to do. So we're hopeful that these new changes will be a very positive thing. They're just not quite ready yet. So
Got it.
crossing our fingers, we're hoping for December 1st.
Okay, very good. And I get the frustration from parents and from teachers and from
Absolutely.
administrators and everybody who've been dealing with this for 18 months. And I think, if we think back to last year or even earlier this year, the big goal was to get kids back in the classroom. That's what everybody said that they wanted to see happen. And so this is, unfortunately, since we're still dealing with COVID and the virus, this is the safest way to be able to do that, is to get kids back in the classroom, is the masking, the testing, some of these other things that are coming through in order to maintain that face-to-face instruction that everybody seems to agree works the best. We love virtual, and it's okay, but face-to-face seems to be still the best way, talking about strategic planning, the best way for education, right?
It is the gold standard.
Even though it's 130 years old or whatever it is, right? We're
Right.
still sitting across from each other, learning from a teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, virtual learning has its time and place.
Right.
And our secondary, our older students are much more adept at it. But for our younger students in particular, it's face-to-face instruction is the gold standard, and I understand. I understand where the frustration comes from. I'm a parent myself. In fact, I'm sure people can hear this at this point, Scott. And
I'm not sure if they can, but it's okay.
That's okay.
It's
well,
okay if they
I'm
can.
going to embarrass him. My son is actually with us in the studio right now because his school had to go virtual as well. And so, it affects all of us. We understand where those frustrations lie, but I think ultimately these are good measures in place for us to allow face-to-face instruction to occur when we're following those practices very well. And I think, like I said, by and large, our community's been very receptive to that, and we thank you. So
very true.
We're very grateful for the opportunity to teach our students in person.
Right, and I'm grateful to have a studio audience once in a while. So thank you for bringing your son here with you this morning. But he's being pretty quiet over there.
He is. He's doing a good job.
I really appreciate it, and so we're almost done. So there you go. But yeah, very good. One more thing I wanted to ask you a little bit about, Mr. Summers, is this idea of togetherness. And you sent me a picture and explain maybe what we're looking at. This looks maybe like a bulletin board or a hallway somewhere.
Yeah. So this is actually a bulletin board in the central office at Aztec Municipal School District, and this is the work of Lauren Laws, my associate superintendent for teaching and learning.
Right.
This is her brainchild, and so I've been very adamant with my cabinet that we're in the middle of a substitute shortage for a number of different reasons, but we're always short on subs. So hey, if you've got a few minutes, even if it's just an hour, go help out the schools, go cover a class. And I've substituted a number of different places, including kindergarten classrooms up to secondary classrooms, and so is my cabinet. But Lauren Laws really took that idea to heart, and she created this fall challenge for us, which is a number of different things. It's go engage with students and have breakfast with them. Go cover or substitute for a teacher. Go write a positive note to somebody. And so this idea of togetherness, I think, has really taken hold, at least at the central office, where even my administrative assistant Lisa, she pardon me, she went and covered a kindergarten class the other day, and bless her, because that is not for me. Kindergarten is a very difficult classroom style to step into, and I think everybody's just really embraced that, and this is something that I hope we see systemically go throughout our organization, where everybody's stepping up and kind of taking care of things because it's the right thing to do, not because it's the easy thing to do. Right.
And Aztec, unfortunately, is not alone in some of these shortages that
Absolutely.
You are dealing with. We hear that from other districts, not only here in San Juan County, but across the state, across the country. I think there's a substitute teacher shortage. We've heard of bus driver shortages and things like that. Another note I see on the screen here is to join a bus driver on a route maybe and see what they deal with on their route. And
without a doubt, the hardest job in the district, right? You got to drive, you got
even
to
when
watch
the roads
other
are
drivers.
clear, it's a tough job.
Yeah,
no kidding.
You got 60 kids behind you,
right?
Of differing ages and grade levels. So
right, and of course, Aztec School District. You go out to Navajo Dam areas, up Cedar Hill. I mean, you cover a big part of the northern part of the county, and so those bus routes go a lot of nooks and crannies for sure.
Absolutely. I think our earliest buses start about 5:30 in the morning, and then some of those longer routes don't return back to the bus barn until about 5 o'clock in the evening. So.
Right. And with the shortage of drivers, have you had to combine some routes?
We have.
And so that would make them longer, I would think,
absolutely.
Or carrying more kids maybe.
Yeah, we've had to combine some of those routes, and sometimes it just makes good fiscal sense to be able to do that, but it does lengthen the bus ride for students and for drivers. So,
right.
I think we're in a very good place as a district, at least compared to other districts around the state and nation. But being cognizant of willingness to step in, and I think that's been a great thing with the administrative team here at Aztec. And I would encourage parents, if they're wanting to volunteer, get a hold of Jonathan Acree at the Human Resources Department, and we can get you cleared with a background check and get you in those schools so you can assist and see all of the great things we really are doing despite the pandemic.
Very good. Good point. And other thing I wanted to ask you too is the help wanted sign, right? You still have jobs.
We still have jobs.
Open too if someone doesn't want to volunteer but actually wants a paycheck. Maybe
Absolutely.
You can help them out there too.
Yeah, we have jobs across the continuum. We have bus drivers available, bus driving positions available. We have maintenance, we have custodian, and everything in between from there to teacher and administrator. So you could visit aztecschools.com and click on careers and see a listing that we have available right now.
Very, very good. And before I let you go,
yes,
Mr.
sir.
Summers, I want to ask you a bit about the question on everyone's mind as we get colder weather is snow days.
Snow
and the
days.
policy
Yeah.
of Aztec schools. And I'm afraid to ask this question because now with the virtual learning, I think snow days are going the way of the dodo bird because kids these days I don't think are going to be able to enjoy the snow day like you and I did when we were growing up. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
I got to tell you, we've been having quite a few conversations about snow days in particular, and I think you're right. I think in a lot of cases we're seeing snow days go the way of the dodo. They're becoming extinct because we do have the new virtual methodologies and the abilities to do things that we've never been able to. However, I also think that it's important that kids be kids, and the lessons that can be learned and the memories that are gained from playing in the snow, albeit rare, I think they're important. And so one of the things that we're talking about, we're trying to figure out how to make this work, but if it were to be a 2-hour delay, we knew that the conditions would improve, but it just wasn't safe to put buses on the road, we'd probably make that a virtual day. But if it's a cancellation, if it's truly a snow day and it's snows and just keeps dumping and doesn't look like it's going to let up, we're going to call school, and we're not going to have virtual days, and we're going to let kids and our teachers go experience the snow with their family and their loved ones and cuddle up with a book. And I think it benefits everyone. It benefits the kids, it benefits the staff morale, and it's just something that's important to me. Kids need to be kids, despite the fact that we have the tools to beam into their houses at this point.
Interesting. Okay,
Yes,
so it sounds like you're gonna work snow days into the calendar moving forward. Maybe again, doesn't happen very often.
Right. Doesn't
here,
happen
which
very
is
often.
Kind of
thankfully.
why we live here because I don't like shoveling snow. I don't think anybody else does most of the times. But it sounds like at least for Aztec schools, you will at least consider maybe canceling school when it's a pretty severe weather day.
Correct. Yeah, we're working on it. We got to figure that system out and all the logistics that go along with it. But that's something that I think we're dedicated to as a district.
Gotcha. All right. Good to know.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Summers, always great to talk with you. Thank you for
pleasure.
coming in, and thank you for bringing your son with you. He's been great all day, and I'm sure he's excited to spend the day with you, or maybe not.
Well, I think he's probably a little more excited right now because he gets to miss a couple of his virtual classes. But when we get back to the office, he's going to have to squirrel away and get to work on Google Classroom. So.
Back to work. Okay. Very good.
Yes,
Thanks
sir.
for coming in.
Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it, Scott.
You bet. Great to have you here. Thanks very much. My guest this morning here on KSJE. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, a community-owned and operated hospital. Here for you when you need us. From emergency care to routine checkups and screenings, caregivers are here and ready to provide the safe, high-quality care you need close to home. Online at sanjuanregional.com with the latest health information and resources to help you live life better here.
What can Congress do about big tech? From American Public Media, this is Marketplace Tech. In Washington, I'm Kimberly Adams in for Molly Wood.
Marketplace Tech is supported by Backblaze, a cloud storage platform and computer backup provider designed to simplify storing and using data. Learn more at Backblaze.